You see, right? Sup, dough, shows. Okay, damn. Okay. Oh, hold on. I use so much seasoning, it's crazy. Okay, let's go. You got your snacks, your Carter Buddy, and your Adidas. Check. Let's.
In May 2017, a mother and her 15-year-old son vanished in Alabama. It was very strange. They were never out of contact for long. A missing persons report was filed 2 months after they were last seen. However, it was then a friend of the missing mother came forward, and she had an interesting story to tell. The story being, right before the mom disappeared, she had sent some emails after she found out her husband had a disturbing secret life. Hey you and welcome, my name is Mike, and in this old video we are once again looking at some more creepy ass disappearances. Some of these are, they gotta be unsolved murders. We know, but we don't know. Others, just plain baffling. Let's give it a go.
How y'all doing? Y'all doing alright?
Our first story begins in Holtville, Alabama. Holtville, also called Slapout, which I enjoy. It's an itty-bitty little place in central Alabama. Blink and it's gone. In 2017, living there was 43-year-old...
Go back. I'm not gonna lie. This whole lake right here, it's probably hella bodies.
Living there was 43-year-old Susan Osborne, her 15-year-old son, Evan Chartrand, and Susan's husband, Jerry Osborne. Jerry...
Oh! The dog! Ah, the dog. I'm a dog lover. Some of y'all know I used to have a dog named Peanut, a little Pomeranian. Shouts out to Peanut. He's still with us forever and always. Shouts out to all my dog lovers out there.
Jerry, he wasn't Evan's father, though. He was Susan's husband numero 2. Susan was originally from Michigan, from a loving family, and had been married to Eric Chartrand, ending up in Alabama when Eric had to move for work. They had been living there, doing their thing, but unfortunately their thing became divorce. Susan was then alone with her son Evan, and things weren't exactly going great for our Susan. She ended up having another daughter with a separate guy. She was broke. They were sleeping, on couch to couch to couch. She ended up moving back to Michigan, and she eventually lost custody of her son Evan and of her daughter.
Damn.
Eventually, though, she got back on her feet. She won back custody of Evan Chartrand. Evan, by all accounts, happy-go-lucky kid, and things seemed to be on the up for Susan and Evan. And that's when she met Jerry Osborne. Jerry, military man. He was an Air Force veteran and had served around the world and was discharged due to a traumatic brain injury, if you can believe that, when he had encountered an IED in Iraq. So he received a medical discharge from the military, and he got, PTSD as the little kind of cherry on top of that. So it seemed like the whole family were happy out, doing good. Susan and Jerry married. Evan seemed to really like him. They were this happy little family.
They was.
Susan, she had great friends. In fact, right across the street from, this happy new family of Susan, Jerry, and Evan, right across the street lived Susan's best friend, Holly. And they would, be in constant communication, text each other every single day about what they were doing, what they were up to. Suddenly, though, nobody could contact either Susan or Evan over the summer of 2017.
Damn. Over the summer of 2017? I thought you were going to say, over the next couple of days, maybe a week. Over the summer? Damn.
Herself and Evan were no-shows at family events. Her friend Holly, who lived across the street, who was her best friend, she actually moved across country, so she couldn't exactly go and check on her to see if everything was okay. They weren't actually reported missing, though, if you can believe it, for almost 2 months. They had last been heard from a Memorial Day weekend 2017, May 29th. They were reported missing July 29th. So, what had happened? When the police were finally called, to do a checkup, to do a welfare check, they walked up to the house, and Jerry was there. Jerry was still in the house. He was there. They said, "How are you, Jerry?" And he was there. As I said, cleaning. Susan's...
The hell you cleaning for? If I was the cops, I would have came there, offer some such shit, somebody missing and you the only one home but you cleaning. Put this. I would have bust over the. I would have came over, bust open the door. Put your shit down. Put your shit down. Why you got no gloves? Why you got no gloves? Freeze. Put that shit down. Oh fuck, man! If I was a cop, I wouldn't play nothing. I wouldn't, man. Everybody getting locked up. Club
was there, and Jerry's story went, her, yeah. She left me. She left me on Memorial Day weekend. Left with some guy. Susan was cheating, apparently. She later then came back to the house, packed up all her shit. Susan, her son Evan, and this mysterious guy she was having an affair with, they left. Never seen them again. Jerry had surveillance to prove, that they'd come and gone, that he could show you on camera. Oh, but, shit. You know what, now you mention it, it's been overwritten. Whoops. Neighbors would say they'd seen him burning stuff in the backyard also around Memorial Day weekend. Weird. Susan and Evan also had 2 dogs they'd had for years, members of the family. Jerry's dad had dropped them off at an animal shelter in early June. The police were a little bit suspect of this story, which he could not back up one iota of this entire story, so they got a search warrant to search his house.
If I'm doing a welfare check or somebody's telling me to go check on this family or go to this house and check on some people, knowing that there's people missing, and we come to the door and you're cleaning, off of sustenance, you getting 25 to life.
Maybe I'll find something inside there, some clues as to what had actually gone on. They found that although the home was a fairly new build, Jerry had just recently ripped up everything, new floors, repainted the walls, done everything in this house is brand new. What are you doing? Except the kitchen and the bathroom, however, which when luminol was applied, under a UV light, it lit up like crazy. There was blood everywhere, on the floor, on the walls, on the ceiling. But unfortunately, when the police wanted to, test it, it was too degraded to actually say whose blood that was. Cadaver dogs also led to a spot in the garden where the burn pit had been, and neighbors reported hearing gunshots on Memorial Day weekend. Other than that, though, nothing. It was like the mother and son vanished off the face of the earth. No activity on banks, social media, no nothing. Never to be heard from again.
Damn.
Something had happened on Memorial Day weekend, which would be gunshots, a burn pit where bodies had been, and then nearby the home, nearby this little town, is a big-ass lake.
I'm saying!
Which will take you a while to search. So it was during all of this, the investigation, that Susan's friend Holly, who is now living across country, she came forward and she was like, just before, a couple of weeks before I last heard from her, she'd kind of been acting a little bit weird. As I said, they were in constant communication. In fact, Holly was one of the first people to start worrying about Susan when, she was texting her, no answer, calling her, not getting anywhere. She even wrote letters that were just sent mailed straight back to her. Just a few weeks before Susan and Evan vanished, Susan sent an email to Holly. It was titled, "Don't mention this in text." Well, color me intrigued. See, Susan was saying Jerry wasn't exactly the nice guy he seemed like on the surface. He was extremely possessive and controlling.
I can tell by the picture right here. His eyeballs are a little bit too close together. Because of that, he a fuckhead.
He wouldn't let her see her family. He made her quit her job. He checked her texts, he checked her phone, so email was the only way that Susan and Holly could communicate without Jerry knowing. Susan had come to believe that her husband Jerry was secretly a gay escort.
Okay. So, he was doing wait, what do you mean gay escort? Like he was doing some crazy ass gay ass shit? Or, what you mean? Hold on.
Her suspicions began when he was always at work, working late, didn't answer his phone, and was out of town for days on end. She thought maybe he was having an affair, but not exactly this kind of affair. She then found some emails between himself and the lads over on boyscourt.com. And well, she found this ad with his real phone number on it, and he had those tattoos. Hey there guys, my name is Jay, and I'm looking for older, generous gentlemen to spend some...
What? Yo, just be real. Just be straight up, bro. Just be straight up with yourself. If you gay, you gay. If you straight, you straight. What is it called when you like both sexes? I forgot. But if you like that, you like that. Just be straight up. Because I feel like your wife or your girl found out and something, either she didn't go with, she wasn't with the shits, or and she tried to leave, or she tried to tell somebody he also wasn't with the shits. Just be straight up. Just be straight up from the very beginning. I cannot express that enough. God damn. I live in Atlanta. There's a whole lot of that.
Quality time with. What? Surprising, to say the least. Now, when she was sending all this to Holly about what she found, she said she hadn't confronted him about it yet. Then a few days later, Susan emails again, and it's like, you know what, we spoke, I had a sit-down conversation with Jerry, and it's all good.
No.
I'm happy.
No.
It's all water under the bridge.
No.
That's a lot of water to go under a bridge. However, then just a few days later, Susan and Evan vanished, disappeared after learning his secrets. Quite a twist, but ultimately extremely tragic, as to date, they remain missing. Jerry always has, and to this date does, maintain he had nothing to do with their disappearance, that he was telling the truth, that she left willingly with some other guy, and to this day, the case remains open.
What?
It was New Year's Day, and all is quiet on New Year's Day, especially. Listen to this, in Malaga, Spain, 2008. This place was Mijas Costa, on the southern coast of Spain, a pretty little town overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. Living there, this January 1st, 2008, was 15-year-old Amy Fitzpatrick. She was living with her mother Audrey, stepfather David, and brother Dean. See, Amy and her family were originally from Dublin, Ireland, and had moved to Spain for work. Stepdad, he sold real estate there, so the family upped sticks, and here they were. Now, young 15-year-old Amy, she did not like living in Spain. She wanted to go home back to Dublin. Was not a fan. She was depressed there. She didn't really have many friends. She just didn't like it. They had moved over in 2004, so they'd been living there for almost 4 years by this stage, but she never settled. She skipped school. She would run away all the time. She would sleep on benches, all that sort of thing. In her diary, she wrote about tension that was going on in the house. It seemed like there was tension between herself and her stepdad, David Mann. Now, she was supposed to go back and spend Christmas back in Dublin with her biological dad, but that fell through. So she was, even more upset and depressed than usual at this time when New Year's Eve came around just a couple of days later. So Amy ended up spending New Year's Day with her best friend, Ashley. They were babysitting for the day in Ashley's home. It was shortly after 10 p.m. that night. Amy was due to head back to her own house. It was only like a 10-minute walk from Ashley's to Amy's, along this little dirt road. But on that lonely dirt road, Amy vanished. Now, initially the Fitzpatrick family didn't report Amy missing for a day, because, as I said, it wasn't uncommon for her to, sleep rough, spend time with friends, or just out somewhere. They didn't even really know anything was off to begin with. But then, once the police were alerted, shit got real quick. Now, Audrey and Dave were absolutely positive that Amy never came home that night. That, she left Ashley's and then she disappeared. She never once came home and then left. You know what I mean? But Amy also didn't, have a passport. She didn't have money. So her running away would seem very, very strange.
The police search was slow to get started, but now there's intense activity as the Spanish authorities are out in force looking for her. Meanwhile, her family can only wait and hope.
This is the path that Amy Fitzpatrick took that night, an unlit, lonely track surrounded by undergrowth. But search teams have found nothing here, no sign of the 15-year-old. And if she has indeed vanished, it's without a trace.
I just want to appeal to anyone who may be holding Amy against her will. Please, let my baby Bunton go.
What's up, stepdad? Why you so quiet? What you got to say? Say down.
She's a loving kid who would never do anyone any harm. She'll be frightened. Please don't hurt her. And Amy,
I never. Are all of those microphones really necessary? It's about 50,000 microphones up. Like, God damn.
there, and the time is going on and you're afraid to come home, please don't be afraid. There's nothing to be scared of. We just want you back with us where you belong.
Today, 230 emergency service personnel continued the search, which has now been extended as far as Marbella, despite criticism of a delayed response by all involved.
I got a question. This has nothing to do with this. It just popped into my head. The presidential debate was in Atlanta recently, and right. So with that being said, hypothetically speaking, if Trump and Biden was to get assassinated, just like, hypothetically speaking, if they was to get assassinated, both of them in real time at the same time, what do you think will happen? Do you think Atlanta will be on martial law or the entire country? Because I feel like Atlanta will be on lockdown for like a long time. I don't know why I just thought about that.
Actually, those leading the operation remain optimistic.
What happened? No one knows. There was an absolutely massive search by the Spanish authorities, and it brought to light absolutely nothing. But see, here is where things get weird. As I said, Audrey and Dave, stepfather, they absolutely claim Amy never came home after, she was babysitting at her best friend's house. But what's weird is that Amy was with Ashley, babysitting there, and Ashley would say she had seen Amy with her phone, with her mobile phone, one of those old Nokia phones, Nokias, and then she vanished. That pink Nokia, however, was later found in the Fitzpatrick house. So how did it get there? Months later, in August 2008, that phone, which had been recovered and was now in the custody of the family lawyer, it went missing again. Someone broke into the lawyer's place, stole the phone, and they also stole a laptop that had been used in the investigation into missing Amy. Then, in June 2009, so a year and a half later, Audrey claimed she received a call from a man saying he knew where Amy was, that Amy had been kidnapped and was in Madrid. It was a ransom call of €500,000 to get her back. The police investigated but didn't find anything, so likely it was bullshit. So what really happened to Amy is she walked home that night. If she did indeed walk home. Well, there were some reported sightings of her in different bars and stuff like that around that time. Some people have said they seen her at the bar. Even though she was young, it seems like Spanish are pretty relaxed about younger people drinking in bars. Or some people said they seen her in the company of an older man. Who really knows? I don't know. Some claim she may have been abducted by a gangster. This part of Spain is frequented by a lot of Irish gang members, so maybe she was involved somehow with one of them. Maybe when she was sleeping rough, she met somebody, who knows. Audrey was unsatisfied with what the police were doing, so she actually hired a private investigator who'd worked on the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Great, hire a person who couldn't solve the most famous mystery in Spain. Way to go. The Fitzpatrick family, eventually, they moved back to Dublin. Amy was never found. Nothing of hers was ever found. It was like she completely vanished. And here things get even weirder. Dave, the stepfather, later killed Dean, Amy's brother. It was claimed there was some kind of argument, and Dave just somehow ended up stabbing him to death.
What? That took a left turn. Hell no, there was no build up to that. What the heck? Yeah, stepfather had something to do with all this.
In their home. He ended up serving an entire 5-year prison sentence for that one, and then when he got out of prison, he later ended up getting back with Audrey after one of her kids disappeared under very mysterious circumstances, and the other one was killed under kind of mysterious circumstances by this guy. Some man for one man. According to Ashley, Amy didn't like her stepdad Dave at all. She called him creepy, said he made her skin crawl.
Wow.
Who knows what really happened? It's chilling that she could have just vanished on a walk home. If she did. Because maybe she made it home. This next story, and yes, I am recording this after my vacation, thanks for noticing, involves a creepy-ass disappearance in the Sierra National Forest. And maybe, just maybe, a ghost. Sandra Johnson Hughes was, in 2020, 54 years of age.
She looks familiar. Hold on now.
She had just moved from Hawaii to California. Aunt Sandy, as she was known to her beloved niece, she had no children of her own. She had been married twice. She had been divorced twice. You know, outdoors, camping. She even studied to...
She'd been married twice. Divorced twice. After the second time, baby, just be single. You for the street.
Park ranger at one point in her life. So, very experienced outdoors woman. She was always out hiking. She was always out camping. She had no fear of the wilderness.
Okay, I remember this picture. I forgot. I don't know if Mr. Ballin did a story on this, but yeah, I reacted to this. I just forgot what happened.
She'd be gone for days, weeks by herself, and classic Sandy. Some reports state that she moved from Hawaii to California. Others just say she went to California just to go hiking. But regardless, this was in June 2020, right at the height of the pandemic, and she was going to go get away from all those disgusting human beings with their coughs, and she was going to go hiking in the Sierra National Forest, not far from Yosemite National Park. As I said, this was something she did. Solo hiking was something she did all the time. This was in a beautiful part of the world. Who could blame her? Not this guy. It was in late June that Sandy traveled from Fresno, and up she went into the wild, into the Sierra National Forest. This would have been her for sure. Plenty of campgrounds, lakes, beautiful vistas, though...
It take her that long to get there? Did she move there? Because I can't imagine going back and forth.
And then, on June 26th, 2020, Sandy contacted her family. She was in great spirits. But of course, here comes the fall. That time when she contacted her family, June 26th, that was the last time they heard from her. In fact, that's the last time we really know anything certain about Sandra Johnson Hughes. After that, when she went out of contact, nobody was really worried. As I said, she did solo hiking by herself all the time, and she was in the depths of the mountains, so contact would be sparse at best. But after that, some very strange things happened, and even stranger things were seen by others. See, on July 2nd, right, this is less than a week after she had last been heard from, a couple of campers came across this deserted campsite, and it was completely disheveled, upended. The tent was there, but it was flattened. Shit, basically just shite all over the ground in this campsite. It looked as if bags had been upended, as if somebody had been looking for something like that, but there was nobody around. It looked like this had been deserted for a couple of days by July 2nd. So whose camp did these guys find, and where were the campers? These hikers they called the park rangers, as this looked very suspicious at the time. It didn't look like animal activity or anything. This looked like something had happened here. What that something was is a completely different question, but something not good. So these hikers they called the park rangers, who arrived. They had a goo around, and they found a wallet, a purse, and identification. That identification? It was Sandra Johnson Hughes. This was her campsite, but she was nowhere to be found. And what was weird is that, as I said, Sandy, very experienced outdoors woman, and she was very orderly. She wouldn't do something like this. She always prepared, camped right. She wouldn't leave her shit laying around. She wasn't there, but booty. That doesn't mean she wasn't seen. It was 2 days later, on July 4th, that she was seen near a place called Chiquito Pass. It's about 20 miles north from where her campsite had been. The witnesses who saw her said she was acting very strange. She was walking around, but she was barefoot, and she had a big old bruise on her face. And so other hikers who saw her walking through this forest, they, "Do you need help? Are you okay?" And she, "No, I'm fine." She kept on marching on into the wild. She refused, but she said they said she wasn't that weird, even though she looked weird barefoot with a big old bruise, but she was, declined their requests for assistance, and off she went. These hikers, is when they got back to town, they saw missing persons posters for Sandra, and they were like, oh, that was her. So something was clearly very wrong with Sandra. Something was clearly no way right here. It was the day after that, I'm talking July 5th, that her car was found, her silver Saab. It was found near where she had last been seen, Chiquito Pass, and it was like down a hill. So her car was off the road, collided with a tree, but the authorities said the collision wasn't that bad. They said it must have been very slow. So
this is what your ass get for being isolated by yourself in the woods, in the mountains. You should have known, excuse me. You should have known if something was going to happen to you. I mean, the likelihood of somebody saving you was pretty slim.
It rolled down the hill and then impacted a tree. That could then kind of explain how Sandy got from her campsite, which was upended and deserted, to Chiquito Pass, which would have been a 7-mile hike or, well, not that long a drive. That collision could maybe also explain why she was in such a state. The bruise on her face, something happened, she was driving, went off-road, but what happened to the campsite? Why was that upended? Something was very, very weird here, and all the while, there was huge searches going on for Sandra. You know, there's missing persons posters. As soon as they found her deserted campsite, missing persons posters went up. They had search and rescue in the area trying to find her. Then they had weird sightings, and then they had her car. The only thing they didn't have was Sandra, a very experienced outdoors woman. This situation was very worrying. The cops actually left her car there, collided with the tree, thinking, well, maybe she'll come back for it. And they left this note attached to the car saying, your family is worried about you, but it doesn't appear she ever came back. The area she was last seen in, this Chiquito Pass, it's pretty deep into the Sierra National Forest. It's where the mountains really begin. It's a very treacherous area. So this entire situation just became very worrying for everybody involved. And as I said, they had search and rescue, they had helicopters. They couldn't find her. It was then a month later after all of that on August 9th, 2020, 2 hunters were driving down the road and they saw a woman leaning against a tree off the road. They said she was there, she didn't seem like she was in distress. She didn't wave at them, she didn't interact with these guys as they drove by at all. Didn't seem upset, didn't wave, didn't try and flag them down, nothing. This was about a 3-hour hike from where her car was found, so again in another different area of the Sierra National Forest. And the 2 hunters, they drove by her, they saw her, and it was only when they got back to town they saw the missing persons posters. Oh, that was Sandra Johnson Hughes that they saw. They said it was definitely her, but she was much thinner than she looked in the pictures, which I guess that's what over a month in the National Forest will do to you. But again, this is just another, scenario that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What was she doing? How had she survived that long? Her surviving that long in the forests is very explainable. She was a very experienced outdoors woman, but if she was experienced enough and had her wits about her enough that she was able to survive that long, why hadn't she contacted anybody? She must have known people were looking for her at this stage. The situation just seemed absolutely bizarre. Was she avoiding people? What had happened back at her campsite that it was in such a state that it had been completely upended? What had happened with her car? Had the collision been intentional, unintentional? Who knows? Maybe there had been an incident back at her campsite. She'd gotten in a car to go get help, but she'd driven deeper into the forest, not back to civilization. The whole situation is very eerie, for sure.
It sounds like she was on something. It sounds like she wasn't all the way there. That's what I'm getting. That's the only thing I can think of.
After that sighting by the 2 hunters in August 2020, there would be no more sightings of Sandra Johnson Hughes. And in fact, a couple of weeks after that, the entire area would be engulfed in flames. There would be a big wildfire that would rip through all of these valleys, destroying all these parts of the forest. Her car had been left there. Her car wasn't engulfed in flames. And after the fires were put out, the police would eventually remove her vehicle from that area. But through all of this, there was never any more sightings of Sandy. A disturbing case for sure. What actually happened, nobody knows. And 4 years later, as I'm making this video that you're looking at, there's been no updates, no sightings of her. Well, that's not exactly true. Because about a year after she was last seen, in the summer of 2021, there was a sighting. Kind of. In July 2021, the Gorba family from California were going on a little vacation into the Sierra National Forest. It was parents Jake and Victoria Gorba and their 3 children. They were having a grand old time, looking at the birds and the bees and the valleys and the trees and just enjoying the beauty of this part of the world. Only thing is, their oldest child, 3-year-old Caden, he saw something a little bit different. Something no one else saw. The family were in their car at Should I Peak. For reference, about an hour and 45 minutes by car from where Sandy's campsite had been. So the family were there, they'd pulled off to the side of the road, they were munching out on some lunch, and Caden is looking at the window of their vehicle. And in a nearby meadow, he sees something. He said, "There's a woman standing there, and she's looking right at us." Parents were in the car also. They didn't see anybody. But Caden was clearly looking at something, and something was looking right back at him. Caden said, "There's a lady over there in the meadow. She has blue hair. She's wearing a black shirt. She needs our help, but she's dead. She's lying face down on the ground with her legs up in the air. She can't talk to me, but she's over there. We need to help her." Jake and Victoria, his parents, that went over her, they didn't see jack shit.
Bro. I've heard this story before. It's just like, it's been a while since I heard it. And some of the stuff is kind of like, I kind of heard already. But then some of it is like, I forgot what the story is about. But if your child sees something and describes to you in detail what's going on, like what they see, maybe you should check it out. Or at least get the police involved. Because ain't no way, let's say I see in the, on the floor, I see this, right? I see this. I see an oil bottle that's clear with a red cap with lines on the bottle, and it says Orville Redenbacher. And then underneath that it has some popcorn, and then underneath that it says popcorn and topping oil, right? The oil is almost gone, but then on the left side of that, I see some seasonings that has a red cap, right? It's plastic. It's been opened. The seasoning is almost done. I see the words Orville Redenbacher nacho cheese popcorn seasoning. And then I see a chip on the side, like on the image, on the seasoning, that's dipped in some nacho cheese, right? And then the bowl that the nacho cheese in is red. Like, if I tell you I see that down to the last detail, I'm not making that shit up. I see it. Believe me.
Now, Caden was adamant. She was standing right there. She needed her help. Like, they went over there. Even after his parents went over there, they looked around. They couldn't see anybody. They couldn't see anybody in the ground or standing. He was still adamant. Trust me. She's right there. Yeah, I'm sorry, kid. You're not getting in the car. Kids say some creepy ass shit and, right. You can stay here. So regardless, the family, they eventually went back home, and then
I would have been like, if she's right there, now we're going to watch. We're going to be right next to you. We're going to protect you. But if she's right there, try to touch her. Try to reach out. Try to help her. I I probably would have started recording that. I don't know.
Mom Victoria, she posted this on Facebook saying, "Hey, you won't believe what the creepy shit kids say, am I right?" It was then they learned of missing Sandy, who disappeared about 5 miles from here. A sheriff's corporal, he later stumbled across this post, and when the authorities went over to speak to them, to speak to Caden, he described Sandra to a T, to the blue hair, to the black shirt she was last seen wearing by the witnesses in the park. Now later on, the sheriff, Jake, the dad, and Caden, the son, they went back to this area where he's already seen her, and the police, the authorities, they had a look around this area. They found nothing there, but he was adamant he had seen her, and he could describe her.
There's a lady over in the meadow in a black shirt.
Oh man, yo, why is that kid just looking at the camera like that? Yo, that kid look like he can see ghosts. That kid, I don't know, man. Hey Mo, the way that kid is looking at the camera, I don't know, man. His eye, he be seeing some shit, and I feel like that's not his first time seeing a spirit or like a ghost.
Black shirt, and I got goosebumps. He says she needs our help, but she's dead.
Jake and Victoria checked out the meadow but saw nothing.
He kept saying, trust me, Mom. And I was like, I trust you, bud. I believe you 100%.
Spooked, the couple decided to end the trip early and head home.
And we put it on Facebook, seeing if anybody knew anything about the area, and come to find out that there was a lady missing.
Caden and his dad...
That kid probably looking at spirits right now. Jesus.
...returned with 2 sheriff's deputies the next day, but found nothing.
If she was possibly a ghost looking for some help, I hope that he could have at least helped and maybe help the family find her, because it's been a long time apparently since she's been gone.
Whether that was just a figment of his imagination or a real ghost, who knows? Maybe, he's seen a missing persons poster when they were driving to this area and put 2 and 2 together. I don't know. I mean, he was only 3 years old, so it's very, very weird situation, but it's creepy as heck for sure. And to date, Sandra Johnson Hughes has never been found. Alright, let's go to Busan, South Korea for one of them bafflers, right? Busan, southeast coast of South Korea, very beautiful city. Really, really recommend it if you ever get...
I just realized he's doing like a compilation. This is my first time, I think, reacting to a video and he's not just doing one story. Okay. Alright.
To go to Korea, but there, a very terrifying case of a couple, newlyweds, who just completely vanished in the most inexplicable ways. It happened back in 2016. They were Choi Sung-hee and her husband Kim Yoon-suk. Sung-hee, she was a well-known theater actress in Busan. She was in the production. She'd be walking down the street, she'd go, "How are you, Sung-hee?" Everybody knew her. She was a very talented actress and well-known in the city. While her husband, Kim Yoon-suk, he ran a restaurant in the city. It was kind of like a family business, and it seems like it was he ran quite a successful restaurant as well. So there were, a couple who were doing relatively good. They lived in an apartment in Busan. They had gotten married in late 2015. So by May 2016, they were about 6 months married. And Choi Sung-hee, she was in fact pregnant, if you can believe that. So by all accounts, very happy come summer 2016. And summer 2016, May 2016, that's when what happened. On the night of May 27th, 2016, Choi Sung-hee was out and about, working, rehearsing, doing her thing, and she was seen arriving home to her apartment building in Busan at around 11:31 p.m. She had just been to the grocery store and she had some plastic bags with her, as you can see. Then, about 4 hours later, hubby Kim Yoon-suk arrived to the apartment, arrived home. This was about 3:45 a.m. He'd been out drinking soju and mekju and was having a great old time with his co-workers at the restaurant. So they both arrived home that night pretty late at different times, but they were clearly seen on CCTV entering their apartment. The really scary thing is they were never ever seen leaving their apartment. The couple were reported missing to the police about 2 days later by Kim Yoon-suk's dad. He hadn't heard from his son in a couple of days, contacting him, ringing him, texting him, going to the apartment. All went nowhere. The police opened an investigation into the missing couple about a week after they were last seen. So the police seen the CCTV of them entering their apartment building. Police went to their apartment and they were not there, but there was no CCTV of them exiting at all. And this is where things get even stranger. Their phones, both of their phones, had been used since they were last seen. Choi Sung-hee texts had been sent from her phone to the director of the theater where she worked, saying that she wouldn't make it to rehearsals. The text said that she was feeling unwell, and then she later would say that she wouldn't be back at all because she had to go to the hospital as she had an accident, quote, like last time. Now what that meant is that Choi Sung-hee had a history of self-harm and depression, and so that's what they took to meant that maybe she had hurt herself once again. So that is like kind of odd, but not that strange. What started to worry the director when he was getting those texts from her phone is that the language was very formal. Like a lot of languages, there's the informal and formal version of the language, and Choi Sung-hee would usually talk to this person in the informal way. So the texts were written just a little bit weird. And calls to her phone to try and speak with her, they went no, her phone was disconnected. The director of this theater later got a call from someone claiming to be Kim Yoon-suk, his star's husband, saying, oh, I'm so sorry, she's in the hospital, she's really unwell, I'm so sorry, her not being able to act is like disrupting the production and yada, yada, yada. Now, the director assumed this was Kim Yoon-suk, her husband. The thing was, though, the director had never met him, so he was unable to say if that was actually his voice or no. The police followed up on this, and no. Choi Sung-hee had not been admitted to any hospital in Busan, any hospital in the country. The restaurant that Kim Yoon-suk ran, that they got calls from someone claiming to be him and saying, he was feeling unwell and he wouldn't be back for a couple of days. Now, the employee who answered the call said it kind of sounded like him, but he sounded exhausted. And the more they thought about it, it sounded like someone who knew his voice and was imitating him. Interestingly, Kim Yoon-suk's phone last pinged from Busan, where they lived, but Choi Sung-hee's phone last pinged from Seoul.
God damn!
3 hours away. So the police did not buy that these texts and calls had actually been sent by the missing couple, the missing newlyweds. And then, investigating the apartment where they had last been known to be, things got even stranger. So they knew they'd gone in, but couldn't find any evidence of them leaving, but they weren't there. There was no signs of a break-in in the apartment. There was no signs of a struggle in the apartment. Their dog was there. It was alive. Now, it was in quite a state after having been left alone for a good couple of days, but it was still there. It was alive. The groceries that Choi Sung-hee was seen on CCTV bringing into her apartment, they were there on the kitchen countertop, still in those plastic bags. Weirdly, there was more grocery stores in Choi Sung-hee's car, which was parked in the apartment building's garage. So it seemed like she'd been walking in that CCTV with some groceries, and then she was meant to go back down and get the rest of the groceries from her car. But she didn't, for some reason. The scene made no sense. So the groceries were...
What about steps? What if they left the apartment through the stairs or something?
There was unwashed dishes in the sink, but there was missing wallets,
unwashed dishes in the sink? Hell no! I don't play that shit.
Passports, a missing laptop. On one hand, maybe they ran away, but on the other hand, why did they leave all of this stuff here? And why? It just didn't make any sense at all. So what could have happened in the apartment? Was somebody waiting for them in their apartment? Choi Sung-hee, she went in, she was going to go back down again, but somebody was lying in wait for her. And then when her husband Kim Yoon-suk came home about 4 hours later, there was somebody waiting for him also. But if that happened, there was no signs of a struggle, and then there's no CCTV of anybody leaving, no CCTV of somebody dragging bodies out. Almost every exit to the building had a camera, except the emergency exit. But in the vicinity of the emergency exit, there was a camera. So long story short, you could technically exit the building without being seen, but you would have to know this exact route, know the position of every camera, and even walk underneath a camera at one point to avoid being seen. You would need to know the building extremely well and be extremely careful, and if you were carrying bodies, that would be almost impossible. And who would do this? The couple had no history of financial debts or maybe something nefarious.
Unless somebody that knew the camera system, either somebody that knew the camera system disabled it and helped them out. I'm just trying to figure out what happened. Like, what's logical? But I'm thinking somebody disabled the cameras and just went crazy on them.
Going on. But there was another woman who police think could be involved, and this was Kim Yoon-suk's ex-girlfriend. She's only been named as Yoon. It's believed that Kim Yoon-suk had a secret second cell phone that he used to communicate with his ex-girlfriend. They had been dating a couple of years prior. They had actually been almost engaged at one point, but allegedly their families didn't get on very well, so that led to them breaking up. She went and married somebody else, but divorced after a month. She divorced this other guy because this other guy believed she was still seeing Kim Yoon-suk. They were having an affair, even though their families hated each other. They had strong feelings for sure, or at least she did for him. Maybe he did for her if he still had a second cell phone that she used to communicate. She later had this mysterious Yoon woman. She later had a miscarriage that it's reportedly she blamed Kim Yoon-suk for. Regardless, Yoon, she married another guy, then moved to Norway, if you can believe that. But it's believed she had issues, as I said, regarding a miscarriage. She believed Kim Yoon-suk ruined her life, and at the time the newlywed couple disappeared, she was in South Korea. She was mysteriously in South Korea. She didn't tell her family she was back in her own country. She was staying in motels and paying for everything in cash. And she was due to head back to Norway in June. But as soon as the investigation into the missing newlyweds began, she suddenly decided to get an extra flight to go back to Norway even earlier. So the police believe maybe she has information. They just want to speak to her. They want to ask her a few questions about her missing ex-boyfriend and his wife. But when they asked, Norway to extradite her to send her back to South Korea, Norway refused. They said there was no evidence tying her to this mysterious disappearance, so they refused to send her back. She has never returned to Seoul. Whether she even has anything to do with what we don't even know happened, who knows? But what happened in that apartment in Busan, to this day, 8 years later, it remains a complete mystery.
8 years? Damn.
In March of 1991, 4-year-old Michael Donaghy was having a grand old time at an elementary school playground, going on the swings, playing hide and go seek, all that kind of stuff. The glory days of childhood. This was in Victoria, British Columbia. The Donaghy family was made up of parents Bruce and Crystal, and then their 4-year-old son Michael and his baby sister Caitlin. That day, Mom Crystal was playing in a local flag football game in a park beside the nearby elementary school. Crystal would play, Bruce and the kids, would watch, but as there was a playground nearby, Michael, 4-year-old little lad, kind of potters over to the swings, sees all the other kids playing and wants to join in. Nothing weird so far, but I'm going to get to the weird part because what happened right after is a complete mystery. Michael was only by himself for a couple of minutes. Crystal, she was getting ready for a flag football game. She didn't want to leave her son walking over to the playground by himself, but Bruce, he was just a couple of minutes away with their other baby girl, so she was like, he'll be fine for a couple of minutes, even though it made her uneasy. Then it was reported by the kids who were in the playground that they were playing hide and seek, and that Michael was due to go and hide. The kids were going to count to 10 and then go look for him, but for some reason they only counted to 5, because kids are little cheaters. But when they opened their eyes to start looking for him after the count of 5, he was gone. The kids were looking and they couldn't find him. Then Bruce went to go find Michael so they could watch the football game together. He couldn't find him either. Soon everyone was alerted.
It all started going to that damn park.
The football game was cancelled until they could find him, so everyone was looking around this area. And as you can see, it's pretty open. Not many places to hide unless you went across the road or were taken across the road. Soon began one of the largest police investigations in Canadian history. The police quickly determined it must have been an abduction. He was taken from there, and tips after tips came in.
It would have never happened. It would have never happened if they kept their eyes on their baby. Damn.
Substantial.
Good evening. It's every parent's nightmare to look away for just a second and find that your young son or daughter has disappeared.
What's the last image you have of him?
He went off around behind the cars towards the park.
Do you know if he got there or not?
We didn't see him at the park, no.
So that's the last memory you have?
Stood up here, looked over at the park, didn't see him. I told Crystal I can't see Michael, so I'll go look for him.
He'd asked to go to a nearby playground while his mother played touch football. The playground was within sight of the field, within sight of his father and dozens of other adults. But Michael Donaghy simply disappeared. The abduction of Michael Donaghy is a new kind of crime here, and it calls for new methods.
Were you parked here?
For example, reconvening everyone who had a car in the school parking lot that Sunday
So that was at 12:15?
and running through it all again. Who was where? Was there a vehicle here then? You don't...
Club? Hey, yo. Hey. My bag of seasoning that's like right here. Like this is my table, and it's like right next to the legs of the table. I didn't touch it. And the table didn't touch it. The table didn't move. I'll lie to you not, bro. The bag of seasoning just it was standing straight up, and then it just hell no, hell no.
Here now.
I don't remember exactly what it was. I know maybe it was black, so it would have been by something like a van or a truck with a canopy.
Over there, where the cop car is.
Right where the police car is?
Yeah, I think so. From what I remember.
Okay, and it's a brown van?
I don't know what color it was.
Just a van?
It was dark, a dark van.
That's the lead. So far, the only solid lead the police are talking about. A dark-colored van or camper or pickup truck parked around here. Now, Michael's parents parked their car at the end of the lot, over by the school. And that puts this dark-colored vehicle about halfway along the path that Michael would have had to take to get from his parents' car over to the playground. Nobody saw this vehicle arrive, and nobody saw it leave. But it disappeared, apparently, just about the time that Michael did.
The strongest theory about what happened to Michael is the brown van theory, which is like literally parents' worst nightmare, urban legend type stuff. A year and a half before, someone attempted to kidnap a 3-year-old boy not far from that school. He was luring the child into the van with McDonald's toys. A passing woman saw and intervened. She called the cops, but the van fled before they arrived. Some people reported seeing a similar van in the same area at the same time as Michael vanished.
Don't you think it would have been? Y'all could have said something, like the school or whatever. Like the public should have said something. They should have been signs, be like, "Hey, there was an attempted kidnapping not that long ago. So just be on high alert. Watch your mother clucking kids."
A child also drew a picture of it. So here, folks, we have a very mysterious and creepy disappearance that takes us to Manchester, New Hampshire. There's always something about like New England. Everything's always creepier in these parts. See, in an apartment in that city lived Judith Rann and her 14-year-old daughter, Laureen. This was in 1980. Laureen's father had divorced her mom when she was a kid, so it was just Judith and Laureen living in a 3rd-floor apartment. Laureen, happy and outgoing, got along well with her mom, had friends, all that. Her dreams after a baby, and she was doing good. But there was a couple of reports that she had friends with some less desirable folks. The incident in question happened April 26, 1980. Laureen, she was home alone. Her mom, Judith, was out watching a tennis game with her new boyfriend to play tennis. So Laureen was home alone, Judith was out, and she'd be home late. What happened next? Still kind of up in the air because Laureen, she was only a teenager. She was 14 years old at the time. But she invited 2 friends over to the apartment, a boy and a girl. They have never been named because they were minors at the time. So Laureen, a boy and a girl were there and they were drinking. They were drinking alcohol, if you can believe that, even though they're minors. Jesus, kids these days. They were drinking beer and a bottle of wine. The three kids were there in the apartment, and shortly after midnight, they heard a noise coming from the hallway, the building's hallway, and they assumed it was Judith. So they were like, oh shit, we better, Judith's come, Mom was coming home, we better clear out. The male friend says, whoops, this won't look good if I'm here. He says, Audi 5000, he leaves out the back door. This apartment had a back door that went straight out onto the street. This guy would say he left out through that door, he heard it lock behind him. But the noise they heard coming from the hallway, it wasn't Judith. In fact, Judith wouldn't be home for a following hour with her new boyfriend, this tennis-playing boyfriend. Judith arrives to her apartment building with her boyfriend around 1:30 a.m. and they open a door into the apartment building and it's pitch black. In fact, at first they think maybe a fuse is blown, the power's gone. They go to the next floor, pitch black again. It was then they realized that all of the light bulbs had been removed, had been unscrewed from the hallways of this apartment building. Really weird. Like all of the light bulbs in all the hallways.
No.
They somehow stumble to Judith's apartment anyway, and they find the door is unlocked. They go into the apartment and they open the door into...
What? I'm not going inside what? Hell no. I'm not going inside of that.
Maureen's bedroom, and they see her there asleep in bed. Oh, good. It was then that they noticed that the back door of the apartment, the door was open. Not just like unlocked, like wide open. Pissed off about this, as you can imagine, you're leaving the door wide open in the middle of the night. Judith goes back to Lorraine's bedroom to wake her up and be like, what the hell are you doing? Only in the bed wasn't Lorraine. It was Lorraine's female friend who had been there with her. She says she has no idea where Lorraine was. She was just here. She grabbed a pillow and a blanket, said she was going to sleep on the couch, and then she was gone. And the door is open. All her stuff was still there, but there was no sign of her, and so they called the police. The cops initially said she must have run away or whatever. They weren't exactly too helpful, but days and then weeks would pass, and she never came home.
Damn.
Some witnesses would say they had driven her to Boston, but later say, not too actually sure if it was her. Months later, Judith would be charged to calls a place in California, a place she knew no one and had never been. She believed those calls had been placed by Lorraine. 3 calls from 2 different hotels. One of those calls was made to a teen sexual assistance hotline. Following on that, though, they didn't know anything about Lorraine. And one of the hotels where calls had been placed from that were charged to Judith, it was later found that CP had been made in this hotel. Over the following years, Judith would receive calls. Mysterious calls, always at 3:45 a.m., which is when she reported Lorraine missing. And she'd answer the phone and there's nobody online, or she would just hear breathing. They wouldn't say anything. What happened to Lorraine? Was she abducted? Was she trafficked? What about the light bulbs? Who knows? So what exactly happened that night remains a complete mystery. If what, Lorraine's male friend said is true, that he heard the door lock behind them when they thought that Judith was coming home, then that means someone didn't come in the side entrance. That likely they exited from the apartment, that maybe Lorraine left herself. Now it also should be noted that this male friend later ended his own life, but the police don't believe it's related to the creepy disappearance. So, Lorraine gave her friend her bed, and then perhaps left herself out that side door to do something? Meet someone? Run away? And the light bulbs, what was the story with that? Did someone enter the building, unscrew the light bulbs, and then knock on doors looking for a victim, and Lorraine was unfortunate enough to answer. This was the middle of the night. Then, when she opened the door, it would have been pitch black outside, so this mysterious person could attack her. Then perhaps they kidnapped Lorraine, took her out the side door and left it wide open. That could make more sense than Lorraine leaving herself. If she had left of her own accord, why leave the door wide open? A terrifying mystery indeed. Goddamn nightmarish. It was July 1991, and a Boy Scout troop was heading off for an overnight camping trip. This was very exciting. All the boys were about 12 years of age. One of those young boys was 12-year-old Jared Michael Negretti. This was to be his very first overnight trip out in the wilderness, and they were heading to Mount San Gorgonio.
First? trip out in the wilderness and last trip out in the wilderness. Cluck.
In the San Bernardino Mountains. It's the highest mountain in the region, but it's classed like a relatively low risk hike. It's a class 1 hike, which means, it's well-marked trail. You can't really go too wrong on it. So it would be fine for like 12-year-old boys on a Boy Scout hiking trip. So the group were headed out. There was a scout leader, an adult, and 6 Boy Scouts. This was on Friday, July 19th, 1991. They were all hiking up the mountain, kids all having a good time, shooting shit, singing songs. But always at the back of the pack was Jared. He was lagging behind constantly. Jared was on the heavier side, so it was tougher going for him. He wasn't as fit as the others. Now the area isn't particularly dense, as in trees, but it is a very, very big area. No animals around at all. It can get eerily quiet up there, other than the mice. And Jared began to fall behind more and more. Eventually he fell properly behind, but the scout leader and the other kids just kept going.
That's crazy. That's clocked up. Y'all ain't shit. It sounds like y'all wanted to leave old boy behind. That's crazy. Because it was 2 of y'all. 2 adults. One should have been in the front and one should have been in the back. Cluck.
I was informed by other hikers that was like, you're leaving like a kid behind in the middle of these mountains. The scout leader was like, it's fine. We're almost top of the mountain. We'll get him on the way back.
He's 12.
Sad. Other hikers who saw Jared going down, because he obviously just gave up, they saw him zigzagging down the mountain. He was what's called short-cutting switchbacks, which is, if you're going up the mountain, you go zigzag. If you just kind of go straight through them, it's kind of like a no-no to do when you're hiking the mountains, because you can damage vegetation, you damage the trails, all that sort of stuff. So then, as the scout leader is making their way back down the mountain, as it's getting dark, there was no sign of Jared. No sign of Jared at all. Eventually, they make it down to base camp, and Jared was nowhere to be seen. They didn't see him, and he was not waiting for him. They called the emergency services. For 2 weeks, 3,000 people combed the San Bernardino National Forest and never found him. To this day, no one knows what happened, whether he tripped and fell, or another reason why you don't want to shortcut a switchback is you can easily, it's not a trail. You're going off trail then, you can fall off a cliff, something. Or was it animal attack? Was it human attack? No one knows. But what makes this case really frightening is that a footprint of his was found along with some wrappers of some candy and foods that they knew he had with him. So they found signs of where he had been. They also found a camera Jared had taken with him. Most of the pictures were, what you would expect of the mountain, of the hike, all that kind of stuff. Except the final photo, which was this one. It was a picture of Jared himself, believed to have been taken at night. The flash is on. Was he lost at night and needed the flash? If that's true, wouldn't he have aimed the camera forward? Or was there something behind him? Who knows what happened to Jared Negretti? One detective does believe that Jared wasn't alone on the mountain that day, that night, that he was kidnapped by simple virtue of them searching the entire area. And although they didn't find his body, just traces of where he had been, if he was there, if he had tripped, if he had fallen, they would have smelled something, seen birds gathering. None of this was discovered. There was no signs of a dead body at all in that area, and they did a hell of a search. So he must have been taken away from the mountain. The final picture of Jared Negretti was certainly taken at night, that we do know, when he would have been lost and alone. Maybe alone. It is thought he took it of himself, but what if someone else took that picture? And there you have it. That is some of the creepiest and most disturbing disappearances I've come across. Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot to me. Hope you enjoyed this whole video. Next one will be up in a couple of days. But until then, as always, please take care of each other. Please take care of yourselves. Because I love you. Thank you.
I can assure you, if I ever go missing, God forbid, if I ever go missing, if I ever vanish out of thin air, like nothing, I can assure you, I can promise you, it's not going to happen because I got my Adidas 27,000. So, cluck what you talking about. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you, stay happy, my family.